Her small study was a sanctuary amid the wild chaos, a place lined with shelves of dried petals, pressed leaves, and ancient texts, where the scent of earth and rain lingered like a whispered secret. Today, however, the sanctity of her space was disrupted by a small, unexpected parcel wrapped carefully in time-worn cloth. It arrived without sender or note, carried by a silent courier who vanished as mysteriously as he had come. Alina's fingers trembled slightly as she peeled back the layers of fabric, revealing a flower unlike any she had ever seen. Its petals were an iridescent swirl of deep purples and blues, veined with silver that shimmered under the flickering light of her oil lamp. The bloom pulsed faintly, as though breathing a living heartbeat trapped in floral form. She leaned closer, her green eyes reflecting the subtle glow, feeling a curious mix of fascination and unease. "What are you?" she whispered. Outside, the jungle's symphony hummed a chorus of insects, distant calls of wild birds, and the rustle of leaves stirred by the humid breeze. Yet, within her study, time seemed to slow, the flower's stillness at odds with the vibrant life around her. Alina had always been a botanist with a passion for the mysteries of flora, but this was different. This flower was not merely a plant. It was a vessel of something ancient and powerful. Her mind raced with questions, a scientist's skepticism warring with the eerie sensation that the flower was more than it seemed. Days passed as she studied the bloom, documenting its strange properties. It resisted decay, radiated warmth, and occasionally, when moonlight touched its petals, emitted soft, indistinct whispers, fragments of voices, memories perhaps, that dissolved into the night air before she could grasp them. Her research led her to the bustling markets of the empire, where memories were traded like precious jewels. Alina wandered through stalls filled with glowing orbs and bottled emotions, witnessing how the people bartered their pasts for power, wealth, or reprieve. The market was a kaleidoscope of colors and sound shans from memory dealers, the sharp scent of crushed herbs, and the tense glances of those desperate to forget or remember. It was here she met Morrow, her childhood friend and steady companion through the jungle's labyrinthine politics. His sun-kissed skin and steady gaze were a comfort amid the market's chaos. He eyed the flower with a mix of awe and worry. "Alina," he said quietly, "that flower isn't just rare, it's dangerous. The Empire's memory traders would kill for something like that. You must be careful." His warning echoed in her mind as she returned to her study. The flower's glow had deepened, petals unfurling slowly, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and writhe like living ink. Each petal carried a faint echo, a fragment of a life long ended but not forgotten. That night, as Alina drifted into restless sleep, the whispers grew louder. Dreams wrapped around her like vines, drawing her into a world where memories and reality intertwined. Faces emerged, regal yet terrifying, filled with both majesty and menace. A forgotten king, once tyrant, now trapped within the flower's fragile form, reached out to her across the veil of time. Alina awoke with a start, heart pounding. The journey she had unwittingly begun was only just unfolding. In the jungle empire, where memory was currency and the past a battleground, the petals of the forgotten king had opened and with them a story that would change everything. But what price would she pay to uncover the truth? The flower pulsed softly on her desk, silent yet alive, as the jungle whispered around her, watching, waiting. And so began Alina Tar's descent into the tangled roots of memory, power, and destiny. The flower rested on the carved wooden table before her, its petals closed tightly like the secret it guarded. She had first touched it only a day ago, wrapped in fragile brown paper, its presence already unsettling the quiet rhythm of her life. The air was heavy with the scent of moss and damp earth, but there was another scent now, subtle and stranger, mingling of sweetness and something sharp, like metal and smoke. Alina inhaled slowly, her green eyes narrowing as a faint murmur seemed to curl around the edges of her hearing. She told herself it was the jungle's evening chorus, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of unseen creatures. Yet, beneath that rational thought, a whisper threaded through her mind, soft and elusive. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached out to brush the velvety petals. A chill ran down her spine, sudden and sharp, as if the flower exhaled a breath meant only for her. The whispers grew clearer, not spoken words, but impressions, fragments of anger, power, regret. The image of a man's eyes flashed behind her lids, dark and piercing, commanding yet haunted. Alina pulled back sharply, heart pounding, blinking into the deepening dusk. Alina, a familiar voice, broke through the haze. She turned to see Morrow stepping into the clearing, his stocky frame silhouetted against the jungle's dense greenery. His eyes held a fierce urgency as he approached, the carved wooden talisman hanging from his neck catching the last rays of light. "You shouldn't be alone with that flower," he said, voice low but firm. "There are things in this empire that don't want that bloom to be understood, and those things are dangerous." Alina swallowed her unease and forced a smile. "I'm just studying it, Morrow. It's fascinating, like nothing I've ever seen. But lately, I've felt strange. Whispers, memories maybe." Morrow's brow furrowed. "The flower you have, it's not just a plant. It holds more than scent and color. It holds history, painful history, and power that can consume you if you're not careful." The weight of his words settled heavily on her. She had always trusted Morrow's instincts. He knew the undercurrents of the Empire's memory trade better than anyone. They walked together through the market's winding paths, the air thick with the hum of negotiation, the exchange of memories so vivid they could almost be touched. Traders bartered fragments of childhood joy, bitter love, and bitter regrets as currency, their eyes darting warily. Alina's gaze drifted to a group of shadowy figures watching them from a distance, their interest unmistakable. Doran, she realized, with a pang, a ruthless memory trader rumored to stop at nothing for profit and power. Morrow's grip on her arm tightened briefly in silent warning. Back in her small home, Alina pored over ancient scrolls and brittle parchment in the village archive, the flickering oil lamp casting dancing shadows. She traced the flower's lineage through faded botanical records and whispered legends. The flower, she discovered, was said to bloom only where the blood of kings once spilled, a vessel for memories too dark and potent to be forgotten. Images flickered unbidden in her mind, visions of battlefields strewn with petals, a crown shattered beneath thorned vines, a voice promising unity through fear. Alina's scientific mind wrestled with these ghostly intrusions, torn between skepticism and the undeniable pull of the flower's power. That night, under a canopy of glowing bioluminescent leaves, she met Morrow again. The jungle breathed around them, alive with the soft hum of insects and the distant call of nocturnal creatures. The flower pulsed faintly inside her satchel, a heartbeat syncing with her own. "You must decide, Alina," Morrow said quietly. "This is more than curiosity now. The Empire's future might depend on what you choose to do with that flower." Alina met his gaze, the weight of her discovery pressing upon her. The whispers in the bloom were growing louder, and the line between her own memories and those entwined in the petals was beginning to blur. She knew the journey ahead would challenge everything she believed about memory, power, and identity. As the jungle night deepened, Alina allowed herself one last glance at the flower, fragile bloom holding a forgotten king's soul, waiting to unfold its secrets. And somewhere, in the shifting shadows between dream and waking, the tyrant's whisper grew stronger, calling her into a world where past and present entwined in petals of power. Alina moved carefully through the narrow paths leading to the Empire's ancient archives, a place few dared to visit without cause. The air here was thick with the scent of aged parchment, damp earth, and a faint trace of floral incense that seemed to linger from long-forgotten rituals. As she pushed open the heavy wooden doors, a rush of cooler air greeted her, carrying with it the weight of countless memories stored in fragile scrolls, brittle books, and carved wooden tablets. Dust motes danced lazily in the streaks of light that pierced the gloom, revealing rows of shelves crammed tightly together, their contents whispering secrets from eras past. Alina's fingers brushed gently over the spine of a leather-bound volume, its surface cracked and worn by time. She had come searching for any record of King Velen, the tyrant whose soul now haunted the mystical flower in her care. Yet, as she delved deeper into the archives, it became clear that the Empire's history was fragmented, fractured by deliberate erasures and forgotten tales. Her eyes caught sight of a faded mural at the far end of the room, partially obscured by creeping vines that had found their way inside. The mural depicted a towering figure crowned with petals and thorns, his features both regal and terrifying. Around him, scenes of conquest and subjugation unfolded. Armies clashed beneath blood-red skies. Villages burned, and faces showed anguish and defiance in equal measure. Yet, delicate floral motifs wove through the violence, binding the king's image to the natural world in a strange, uneasy harmony. Alina's breath caught. This was not the sanitized legend she had heard as a child. It was raw, brutal, and hauntingly beautiful. The flower she had inherited was more than a relic. It was a living vessel of memory and pain. Her thoughts churned as she left the archives and made her way to Sari's hut on the edge of the village. The elder's home was a sanctuary of earth and time, filled with the scent of dried herbs and the soft rustle of woven tapestries. Sari's eyes, sharp and knowing, regarded Alina with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "You carry a heavy burden," Sari said softly, her voice like the rustling leaves outside. "The flower is not just a plant, it holds the weight of the Empire's sins and the silence we have chosen." Alina nodded, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within her. Why has the Empire forgotten? Why hide these memories? Sari sighed, her gaze drifting to a faded tapestry depicting blooming flowers entwined with broken chains. Because to remember is to suffer, to forget is to survive. But some memories, like roots beneath the soil, continue to grow, shaping the tree even when unseen. The conversation left Alina with more questions than answers, but also a growing resolve. She understood now that the flower's power was entwined with the Empire's collective amnesia, fragile balance between pain and hope. Days later, she ventured into the memory markets, where whispered trades and guarded glances filled the air. Stalls overflowed with bottled dreams, captured moments, and fragments of lives sold and bartered like precious gems. The marketplace was a riot of color and sound, alive with the hum of commerce and the undercurrent of secrecy. Here, Alina first felt the true weight of what she was protecting. The flower's legacy was not hers alone. It was a beacon attracting those who sought to rewrite history for their own gain. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the jungle canopy in fiery hues, Alina returned to her modest home, clutching a brittle scroll she had salvaged from the archives. The faded text spoke of rebellion, betrayal, and the slow unraveling of King Velen's reign marked by fear, but also by a vision of unity that had been twisted into tyranny. Her fingers trembled as she traced the words, the petals of the flower on her table seeming to pulse softly with an otherworldly light. The roots of the past had taken hold within her, and the path ahead was shrouded in shadow and bloom. The chapter closed with Alina standing at the threshold of her home. The jungle's chorus rising around her like a living dream, the weight of history pressing upon her heart. The question lingered in the humid air. How much of the Empire's true story was she ready to face, and at what cost? Her journey had deepened, the roots of the past entwined with the fragile hope of tomorrow. As the petals of the Forgotten King slowly unfurled, the rare flower rested on her desk, its petals faintly luminescent in the moonlight filtering through the canopy above. She traced her fingers lightly over the delicate bloom, feeling the subtle pulse beneath its surface. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine, but tonight an undercurrent of something else, something older, more profound seemed to hang in the air. The days since she had received the flower had been a dizzying mix of scientific curiosity and unshakable unease. Its beauty was undeniable, a complex weave of colors that shifted with every angle. But beneath its allure lay a weight that pressed on Alina's thoughts, pulling her into shadows she could neither explain nor resist. As the jungle settled into nighttime stillness, a low whisper seemed to stir from the petals just beyond the edge of hearing. Gradually, her eyelids grew heavy, and she drifted into a restless sleep. The flowers glow, casting surreal shapes across the walls. In her dreams, the jungle transformed into a kaleidoscope of twisting vines and blooming flowers that shimmered with an unnatural light. Thorned tendrils curled into the shape of a crown, sharp and gleaming, while fragmented images, flash faces contorted in anger and despair. A great hall drenched in shadow, the echo of harsh commands and cruel laughter. Alina found herself standing in a vast garden, where the flowers glowed with an otherworldly iridescence. Yet the beauty was laced with menace. The petals seemed to pulse like beating hearts, and the scent was heady, intoxicating, and faintly bitter. From the swirling mist emerged a figure woven from petals and shadow, regal and ominous. His eyes, piercing and cold, met hers with a weight that crushed her breath. It was King Velen, the forgotten tyrant, his presence both terrifying and hypnotic. "You carry my legacy," he intoned, his voice a blend of authority and sorrow. "Within these petals lies the truth no one dared remember." Alina recoiled, heart pounding, yet held by the haunting magnetism of his gaze. The dreamscape twisted and shifted, memories spilling forth like petals scattered on a storm wind, visions of conquest and fear, of unity forged in blood and betrayal. The weight of history pressed upon her, threatening to overwhelm. When she awoke, sweat clinging to her skin, the flower's glow had dimmed to a soft pulse. The room was silent but for the distant calls of night birds and the rustle of leaves. Her mind swirled with fragments of the dream, the king's voice still echoing faintly in her ears. She knew she could not face this alone. The next morning, Alina sought out Ellis, the enigmatic dreamwalker, whose reputation for traversing the realms of memory and spirit was whispered in the village like a secret hymn. She found Ellis beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient tree, its blossoms glowing faintly in the dawn light. The dreamwalker's pale hair shimmered like silver vines, and petals seemed to cling to her cloak as if woven from the garden itself. "You have been touched by the flower's soul," Ellis said softly, her eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that calmed Alina's restless heart. "The memories you carry are not yours alone. They seek a vessel, a guide. Together, they stepped into a twilight realm where flowers bloomed with luminous light and whispered the secrets of forgotten times. In this shared dreamscape, past and present intertwined in a dance of petals and shadow. Alina could feel the pulse of the Tyrant King's memories weaving through the landscape, and with Ellis's guidance, she began to unravel the tangled roots of history that bound her destiny. "You must learn to walk between worlds," Ellis explained. "To understand memory is to understand life itself, its pain, its power, and its fragile beauty." Alina nodded, determination rising amid the swirling dream petals. Her journey had only just begun, and the path ahead was shrouded in mystery and danger. But within the dream's embrace, she found a flicker of hope, chance to heal what had been broken, and to shape a future where memory could be a gift, not a curse. As the dream faded and dawn broke across the jungle canopy, Alina knew the flower's soul was no longer just a secret to study, but a force that would demand everything she had to give. And so, with heart steadying and resolve hardening like the roots beneath her feet, she prepared to face the shadows entwined with the petals of the forgotten king. Within the humble walls of her hut, Alina prepared herself for a journey unlike any she had undertaken before. The flower, cradled carefully in a bed of moss on her table, pulsed faintly, its petals quivering in the dim light, as if alive with a breath of their own. Ellis stood beside her, serene and enigmatic, her silver-vined hair cascading over shoulders cloaked in delicate petals that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. "Are you ready, Alina?" she asked softly, her voice like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Alina nodded, swallowing a mixture of excitement and dread. "I must understand. Whatever binds the king's soul to this flower, I need to see it with my own eyes." Together, they stepped toward the threshold of the dreamscape, a shimmering veil that undulated like water caught in moonlight. Ellis extended her hand, and Alina grasped it tightly, feeling an electric pulse surge through her veins. As they crossed, the world shifted, solid earth gave way to an ethereal realm, where shadows took the shape of blooming vines and petals drifted lazily through an endless twilight. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and damp earth, but beneath it lurked a hint of decay, an echo of something long buried. Whispers swirled around them, voices half remembered, half forgotten, their meaning elusive yet insistent. It was here, in this space between waking and sleeping, that the spectral advisors of King Velen awaited. They emerged slowly from the mists, figures woven from petals and shadows, regal and ominous. Their eyes, piercing and hollow, flickered with the dying embers of a forgotten reign. They spoke in tones that thrummed like a distant drum, words layered with meaning and menace. Alina listened, heart pounding, as they recounted the king's vision, a dream of unity forged through fear, a paradise built on the bones of rebellion. Ellis's presence was a steady anchor, guiding Alina through the labyrinth of memories that unfolded like a dark garden. The advisors revealed rituals ancient and arcane, swirling petals coalescing into sigils that bound Velen's essence to the flower's core. These rites were both prison and sanctuary, preserving the tyrant's soul while imprisoning it in fragile bloom. Meanwhile, in the waking world, Morrow paced beneath the great fig tree outside Alina's hut, his sturdy frame tense. He clutched the carved wooden talisman his mother had given him, a talisman meant to protect against unseen dangers. His gaze darted nervously toward the door, worry etching deep lines across his sun-tanned skin. The flower's influence on Alina was becoming palpable, and the stakes had never felt higher. Back within the dreamscape, Alina felt the tendrils of Velen's memories brush against her mind, cold and electric. She resisted the pull, focusing on Ellis's calm voice, the steady rhythm of her breathing, Remember who you are, Ellis whispered. Hold on to yourself as the memories wash over you. Visions bloomed before her eyes. The king's fierce command, the bloodied battlefield, the fragile peace balanced on a knife's edge. Yet beneath the cruelty lay a spark of something else, a vision not wholly dark, a man haunted by his own failures and the cost of his ambition. The dreamscape shifted suddenly, petals swirling into a vortex that threatened to engulf Alina's sense of self. She clenched her fists, drawing on the botanical knowledge that had always grounded her. The flower is not just a prison, she murmured. It is a living archive, a repository of history and pain. Ellis nodded, eyes reflecting the swirling patterns of the ritual sigils. And you are the key to unlocking it without unleashing the darkness. As the dreamscape began to dissolve, Alina's mind filled with a renewed sense of purpose, tempered by the sobering truth of the king's complex legacy. The flower's petals, once mysterious and distant, now seemed to pulse with a fragile life that mirrored her own conflicted heart. Emerging from the dreamscape, Alina found Morrow waiting, his expression a mixture of relief and unresolved fear. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly, the weight of what she had seen settling within her. "I'm beginning to understand. But the danger is real, Morrow. The flower's power is growing, and so is the king's influence." He nodded grimly, eyes scanning the surrounding shadows. "Then we must be ready for whatever comes next." And as the jungle night deepened, the Garden of Shadows held its secrets close, waiting for the next petal to unfurl.